it'll be text 13. And the translation is, your son Krishna appears as an incarnation in every millennium. In the past, he assumed 3 different colors, white, red, and yellow, and now he has appeared in a blackish color. In another Dwapara Yuga, he appeared as Lord Ramachandra in the color of Shuka, a parrot. All such incarnations have now assembled in Krishna. And the word for word, please repeat. Asan, or assumed. Varna Traya, 3 colors. He, indeed. Asya, of your son Krishna. Granataha, accepting. Anuyugam Tanu, transcendental bodies according to the different yugas. Shukla, sometimes white. Rakta, sometimes red. Tata, as well as. Pita, sometimes yellow. Idanim, Krishnatam Gata. At the present moment, he has assumed a blackish color. Asan varnastrayo yasya krinato nu yukam tunu shuklo raktas tata pita idanim krishnatam gata. Couple of chanters. Asan varnastrayo yasya Gunato nu yukam tanu Shukla raktas tata pita Idanim Krishna Tangata. Sanvarnastrayo yasya Nato nu yugam tanu Shuklo raktas tata pita Idanim Krishna Tangata. Asavarnastrayo yasya Gunato nu yugam tunu Shuklo raktas tata pita Idanim Krishna tam gata. Ekor. Asan varnastrayo yasya Gunato nu yugam tanu. Are stated. And therefore, when Gargamuni said, your son has assumed these colors, he indirectly said, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because of Kamsa's atrocities, Gargamuni tried to avoid disclosing this fact, but he indirectly informs Nanda Maharaj that Krishna, his son, was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It may be noted that Srila Jiva Goswami, in his book Krama Sandarbha, has enunciated the purport of this verse. In every millennium, Krishna appears in a different form, either as white, red, or yellow. But this time he personally appeared in his original blackish form and, as predicted by Gargamuni, exhibited the power of Narayan. Because in this form the Supreme Personality of Godhead exhibits himself fully, his name is Sri Krishna, the all-attractive. Factually, Krishna is the source of all avatars, and therefore all the different features of the different avatars present. Factually, Krishna is the source of all avatars, and therefore all the different features of the different avatars are present in Krishna. When Krishna incarnates, all the features of other incarnations are already present within him. Other incarnations are partial representations of Krishna, who is the full-fledged incarnation of the Supreme Being. It is to be understood that the Supreme Being, whether appearing as Shukla, Rakta, or Pita, white, red, or yellow, is the same person. When he appears in different incarnations, he appears in different colors, just like sunshine, which contains 7 colors. Sometimes the colors of sunshine are represented separately. Otherwise, the sunshine is observed mainly as bright light. The different avatars, such as the Manvantara avatars, Leela avatars, and Dash avatars, are all included in the Krishna avatar. When Krishna appears, all the avatars appear with him. As described in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.26, Avatara yasankyeya hare sattva nidher dvija yata viddashina kulya sarasasyu sahasrashaha. The avatars incessantly appear like incessantly flowing water. No one can count how many waves there are in flowing water, and therefore there is no limitation of the avatars. And Krishna is the full representation of the avatars because he is the source of all avatars. Krishna is Amshi, whereas others are Amsha, part of Krishna. All living entities, including us, are Amshas. Maimai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. These Amshas are of different magnitude. Human beings who are minute Amshas, and the demigods, Vishnu Tattva, and all other living beings are all part of the Supreme. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. Krishna, the full representation of all living entities. Krishna is the full representation of all living entities. And when Krishna is present, all avatars are included in him. The 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes the incarnations for each yuga in chronological order. The Bhagavatam says, Kriteshu Klaschatur Bahu Tritayam Raktavarno Syao Dvapare Bhagavan Shyama and Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam. We actually see that in Kali Yuga, Bhagavan has appeared in Pita Varna, or yellow color, as Gaurasundar, although the Bhagavatam speaks of Krishna Varnam. To adjust all these statements, one should understand that although in some yugas, some of the colors are prominent, in every yuga, whenever Krishna appears, all the colors are present. Krishna Varnam Tvasha Krishnam, although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears without Krishna, or blackish color, he is understood to be Krishna himself, Idanim Krishna Tam Gata. The same original Krishna who appears in different varnas has now appeared. The word asan indicates that he is always present. Whenever the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in his full feature, he is understood to be Krishna Varnam, although he appears in different colors. Prahlad Maharaj states that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Channa. That is, although he is Krishna, he is covered by a yellow color. Thus, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas accept the conclusion that although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Pita color, he is Krishna. Krishna Varnam Tvasha Krishnam Sangopangashtra Parshadam Yagnai Sankirtana Prayar Yajantihi Sumedasaha. I first offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to all the previous acharyas, and to all the assembled devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhavevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. In the context, we have danger in Vrindavan, in that Kamsa is on his campaign to kill Krishna. And this name-giving ceremony takes place in a cowshed, because if they performed it publicly, then Kamsa would ascertain that Krishna perhaps had taken birth there, and he would have directly come or sent someone to try to kill Krishna. And here Gargamuni, who has taken the task of reading the astrological chart of baby Krishna and giving the name, has stature in this dynasty, Mahadvichalaram Nrinam Grihinam Dina Chetasam. When Nanda approaches him, he glorifies him as a great Mahatma, Mahadvichalaram Nrinam, and he says to Gargamuni that you go here and there, great soul, Vichalanam, in human society, Nrinam, Grihinam Dina Chetasam, but mainly you come to the fallen, the Dina, Grihastas, Grihinam, those who are absorbed in family life, Grihinam Dina Chetasam. But you come there to uplift them. And here he's giving his explanation of who Krishna is. Gargamuni tells how Krishna's appearance, he comes in every millennium, and he has different colors. And all of those are subsumed within Krishna, because Krishna is the original. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as when Krishna takes birth in Mathura, Vasudeva takes him to Vrindavan, but Vishwanath Chakravarti explains how that Krishna, Vasudeva Krishna, merges into the body of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who took birth literally from the womb of Yashoda. And there are stories in Vrindavan, especially just near the Nrsimha Mandir. If you get to the very tail of Govardhan Hill, there's a Nrsimha temple at the top, well, up some stairs, but it's right at the tail of Govardhan Hill. It's like a peacock. And then at the very end of the tail is the end of Govardhan Hill. And then there's the Nrsimha temple. When you come down from the Nrsimha temple and just walk around the very tip of Govardhan Hill, there are two kunds there next to one another. And in one of those kunds, there's a story that the locals tell, and it's in all the books that talk about Govardhan Hill, that Krishna used to play there with his friends, and they would swim. And while swimming, Krishna would sometimes show his different avatars to amuse the cowherd boys, who would clap and laugh and ask to see various avatars, like the turtle and the fish and so forth. And they got great amusement from that, indicating how Krishna has all the incarnations within him. And Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He's the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he expands himself in various ways. Prarasha Shaktir Vivadaiva Shuyate Swabhavika Jnana Bala Kriyacha. The Shastra explains how God has unlimited potencies. And we are one of those potencies, as is mentioned in the purport. Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manakshastan Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. This is a statement by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita where he says that all the living entities are my fragmental parts. Presently, he says they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind, captured by the material nature. And the solution for this awkward situation for the soul is to reconnect with Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is mentioned by Yogendra when he says, Bhayam dvitiya abhinibeshatasya ishad apetasya viparyayo smriti tanmaya to buddha abhajetan vakyaikayesham gurudevatatma. That somehow we've gotten into an adverse relationship with Krishna. Viparyaya means that although we're eternal servants of Krishna, and happily so, somehow or other our relationship has been viparyaya, or reversed. And our mentality, viparyaya smriti, is opposite what it should be. And that's why we're struggling. And from that adversity that we have, we feel fear. And the word dvitiya is used, and that is that we see something separate, or we have a separate interest from Krishna. And he goes on, does Yogendra, to say that the material nature has the potency of illusion, so that the soul becomes captured. Tanmayaya. But Buddha abhajatam, a person who becomes intelligent, who is intelligent, vakyaikayesham gurudevatatma, can reverse that situation or come back into his natural condition, which is to be a servant of Krishna, and happily so. Said, if you give your attention to Krishna through the Guru, then you can be realigned with your real interest. So Krishna is interesting. We crave a variety. As Prabhupada noted, if you sit in an airplane for long enough, you'll become bored. That's why the airlines put television sets in front of everybody. And then they come every hour and a half and give little something, little. Here's a pretzel. Have something crunchy and look at the screen. Otherwise, we become very restless. And Prabhupada noted this. And Krishna provides all entertainment. His name is Kautukarnava, the source of all entertainment. So, what could be more interesting than someone who changes colors in different millenniums? You mean there's different colors to choose from? As we may shop for some outfit and see that it comes in various colors, and we may think, oh, I'll come today in red, and tomorrow, same outfit, but I'll come in blue. And that keeps us, hopefully, interesting, but at least it amuses us, because we have some variety in our life. So Krishna has multifarious forms that are for his own pleasure. And some of those forms include pastime forms, the ones who come to spread the message, and they appear in interesting ways. For instance, Varahadev appeared when Brahma, who has a heavy responsibility to help oversee the universe, of course he creates it, and then there's some concern about how it will hold together. And when he finds that his creation is out of balance, and he's wondering how to save the earth, he, in a state of anxiety, meditates, and Lord Boar appears from Lord Brahma's nostril and begins flying around, at which time the sages already populating the universe recognize the Lord and begin offering prayers. When Lord Boar shakes his transcendental body, the water that comes off his back purifies all places, and any of the hairs from his transcendental body create kusha grass. For that matter, in the beginning of the creation, there are some demigods who understand that the purpose of life is to perform sacrifice, and therefore they offer a prayer called the Purusha Sukta. Note the name Purusha, that it's about a person. And they don't have any ingredients for sacrifice on hand, because there was no Indian stores at that time. Therefore, in their prayers, they begin noting, first of all, the universal form of the Lord, that the universe has a shape, and it's imagined by them to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sahasra Shirsha Purusaha Sahasraksha Sahasrabha Sabhuming Vishwato Vritva Atitishtat Dashangulam. They describe how the universal form has a multitude of heads, hands, arms, and legs, and so forth. And then they derive the elements for sacrifice by borrowing from the different limbs of the Lord, parts of his body, to perform sacrifice, because that's their duty. And this is interesting, that the universe is actually the form of the Lord. We read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, interesting, the reader in the topic of the Purusha. For most people have an impersonal conception of God, or they're atheistic. And so to bring in the reader in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami describes to Parikshit Maharaj the Virat Rupa. And you may be interested to know some of the features of that Virat Rupa, because we see it every day, or maybe we don't see it. We may not notice the details of the world because we're too busy going to work to look at a screen that only has zeros and ones on it. But he says that the mountains are the stacks of bones of the Lord. If you've ever flown over the Himalaya, it's a revelation of that. Flying, sometimes the pilot will say, now you can see the Himalaya on a clear day. And when you look out, there's a sense of shock and awe by seeing them. And Shukadeva Goswami says, yes, this is just a spark of the splendor of the universal form of the Lord. And we see rivers, and the rivers, he says, are the veins on the body of the Lord. Elsewhere he describes how the birds are the artistic sense of the Purusha, the universal Lord, whose form can be discerned even in the universe. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami is interesting, showing the connection. It's not Dvitiya. Atheistic philosophies say that the universe happened by chance, that all of the variety that we see, including that which is highly organized in the form of living beings, came about by chance. But Shukadeva points out that no, this is actually part of the universal body of the Lord, and it's fully intelligent. And then he points out that the yogis can meditate on the personal form of the Lord within their heart. No need to dwell on something impersonal, which Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita is very difficult to do. Klesho dikartarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukam dehavadvir avapyate. Those who try to meditate on something impersonal are vexed by that, because our nature is to want to see something with variety and form. And therefore Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna directly asks him, which is better, to have some variety and a personal conception, or whether to think of the impersonal. And Krishna says definitively, it's much better. Not only much better to think of the personal, but it's troublesome to try to meditate on something impersonal. And people are thus afflicted because they don't have a personal conception of God. In fact, many people find it abhorrent. And this is due to 3 psychological anomalies that Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita: raga, bhaya, and krodha. Raga means that one becomes enamored by the material varieties, but they're enamored of them because they want to possess and enjoy them. Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam taya prahita chetasam avyaktahi gatir dukam devadbhiravapyate. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, note this, that when one doesn't see the universal form of the Lord, but just sees the variety as objects to possess and enjoy, bhoga aishvarya, and wants to collect these things and wear them on their bodies and try to eat them or ingest them or look at them, taking them in as much as possible through the senses, bhoga and aishvarya, and then take the stuff and say it belongs to me, which is like getting into an Airbnb and then saying this is my house, or an Uber and say this is my new car. We're only there for a short ride. So Krishna says, Bhoga Aishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Prahita Chetasam Avyaktahid Gatir. I'm sorry, I crossed over to another verse. He says, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir. I'm sorry. Bhoga Aishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Prahita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Samadau Navadiyate. Navadiyate means because of this anomaly of wanting to enjoy the variety for oneself, then you can't have this proper meditation that Krishna is mentioning. He mentions it earlier. He says, Vyavasayatmika buddhir eke hakunanandana. This is the solution to all your problems, is to just meditate on the Purusha, on the personality of God. But you can't do that if you're too attached to the variety of the material world and want to enjoy it, bhoga. Okay, so therefore, Shukadeva starts by saying, no, don't look at the world as a place for enjoyment. Look at it as the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and appreciate that all of that comes from the Lord. Then he talks about the supersoul within the heart and how he's a person. He has 4 arms, 2 legs, and he's adorned with various ornaments. And the yogis are to meditate on that form within their heart and dwell on the various features of the Lord, features. As mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, on the bottom of the Lord's lotus feet, there are markings. These are evident in Vrindavan because Krishna walks barefoot most of the time. And there in Vrindavan, everyone can see Krishna's footprints. For instance, Akrura, when he came to Vrindavan to pick up Krishna, to take him back to Mathura, then he saw Krishna's footprints on the ground of Vrindavan. And he dove off his chariot and rolled in the dust of those footprints, which is something that the residents of Vrindavan don't do. When Krishna to excite everybody in Vrindavan and bring out their emotion for him, dove into the Kaliya lake. It was poisoned at that time. It was much bigger than it is now. You can still see the lake off of the Jamuna, but back then it was many miles wide. And Kaliya, who was a serpent, took up residence there, but he was contaminated, and he was contaminating the whole lake. So much so that the fumes from the lake were poisonous all around Vrindavan. So Krishna dove into the water, and he began slapping his hands on the surface of the water, making musical sounds. And when Kaliya heard this, he became angry, and he attacked Krishna, and Krishna allowed himself to be held in the coils of Kaliya for some hours just to create drama in Vrindavan. This is leading back to the footprints. Well, meanwhile, back home with Nanda and Yashoda, they had stayed back to celebrate Balaram's Titi, his birthday Titi. So Balaram wasn't there that day. That's why Krishna got away with it, because Balaram usually would preempt such things, and Krishna don't do that. In fact, at that time, everyone in Vrindavan saw bad omens, and they thought something must be wrong. So they hurried down to where they knew Krishna was playing with his friends. And on the way there, says Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they were able to trace Krishna's path because his footprints were apparent. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, how would they be visible? Because so many tens of thousands of cows walk on the same pathways, and so do the people. So how would you see clear imprints of Krishna's lotus feet? He says, because everyone in Vrindavan, including the cows, are wary never to step on Krishna's footprints. And therefore, they're always preserved wherever they go. So those footprints are distinguished because Krishna has markings, and you can look and you see on the imprint that they have various symbols, like a barley corn. Now that's interesting. Who would think of having a barley corn? And then there's a thunderbolt also on Krishna's foot. And leading back to the yogis, how Shukadeva had recommended, no, don't think of something impersonal. It's not vipassana, just think of your breath and think of nothing. It's no, look inside and find the form of the Lord. And then he says, on the Lord's lotus feet, there are markings. One of them is a thunderbolt. Now, what might happen if you meditated on the thunderbolt that's on the lotus feet of the Lord? Well, Shukadeva explains. He says, by meditating on that thunderbolt that's on the lotus foot of Krishna, then mountains of sin that one has accumulated in the world by trying to possess and enjoy it and accumulating a huge mountain of debt called karma, that's smashed by the thunderbolt on Krishna's foot. And how do you access it? By meditating upon it. This indicates the efficacy of thinking of the personal form of the Lord. And beyond the supersoul, we then have Krishna's personal appearance in the world. He comes in various colors. Asan, he assumes, varnas, trayo yasya. He assumes different colors in different yugas. Asan varnas trayo yasya. Grinato means nu yugam tunum. In different yugas, he comes with different colors. That's interesting. He'll come in a white incarnation. He'll come in a red incarnation. In one of the translations of this verse says, he also, it says here, just mentions parenthetically, he also comes with a greenish hue. Who's that? Ramachandra. Green like a parrot. That's interesting, how he comes in these different colors. And then Krishna has all the colors. Within the blackish form of Krishna, all the colors are present. What's more, all the avatars are there within Krishna. Everything is there. Therefore, when we meditate on Krishna, we avail ourselves to everything. And as parts and parcels of Krishna, that meditation on Krishna is not only fascinating, but is also completely satisfying. So those who are overly attached to the material varieties for their own enjoyment can't do that. Raga. And then bhaya means people become discouraged because of their experience in the material world. They've been let down one too many times in their relationships. Therefore, they have fear of personal relationships. It's a psychological anomaly. And thirdly, people become angry. I met such an angry person when did we go on Sankirtan? 2 days ago? That was Saturday. There were two young men standing near where we were distributing books. I was searching the area for somebody to talk to, and two young men were there, and one of them was decidedly angry. Krodha, that's the third anomaly, become angry. And when I showed him the book, actually he was a bystander, and I was showing it to his friend, but the bystander had a scowl on his face. And when I asked about karma, you believe in karma? He said he didn't believe in it, and he said because it judges people, and it's other people, it's this book telling what's good and bad and what's morality. And he became indignant by the fact that we were presenting something that we were calling authoritative, and he was resisting that idea vehemently, so much so that I could see he was angry. And when I asked him a few questions about it, he became disturbed and he walked away. End of conversation. But I felt the anger. So these three things: raga, attachment to the material world, which is a big mistake, because the elements of the material world we can't really experience them. They're only reflected on the imagery on the screen of our mind, and then we watch them and think that we're interacting with them. But it's the interaction of watching a movie screen and feeling emotion, but we're not really part of that. It's illusory. And then the fear that we experience because of disappointment with personal relationships over many, many lifetimes, that's also not necessary. And then krodha comes from overthinking. Too many people who go off-road and try to find their own philosophy due to a sense of false ego, that they want to come up with something original. Everybody's a Muni, but not a very good one, especially nowadays. And Prabhupada, I heard say just 2 days ago when I was listening to my little red box early in the morning, he was saying, we're safe because we don't make anything up. We just follow Krishna. And so these three things, Krishna says, vita, raga, bhaya, krodha. You have to give up this inordinate attachment to the variety of the material world. Yeah, it's nice because it's a reflection of reality. But learn the difference. Reality distinguished from illusion. Nasateo vitite bhavo, na bhavo vitite sutta, ubayorapi drishton tas tvanayos tatvadarshadi. Krishna says, smart people figure this out. They know the differences in the energies. Don't get faked out by the temporary. That's not your thing. Nothing to see here. Move on. Then he says, Yehi samsparshacha bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyanta vanta konteya nate shuramate buddha. Not only that, he says, if you get involved here on that emotional level and think that I'll collect this stuff, I'll keep it in a box and I'll put a fence around it and I'll enjoy it, this is my stuff, then he says, it's going to cause you misery. What comes out of that interaction, trying to raga, try to get overheated and try to grab the stuff here in the material world, he says, that's what's causing your suffering. And Prahlad Maharaj says in his teachings to his friends that the minute you start thinking about how to enjoy this variety of the material world, that's the very minute that you start suffering. You don't have to go deeply in it. Just the preliminary idea that I'm going to enjoy the material world puts you in suffering. What to speak of prolonged exposure? What happens? You become encrusted with this residue of your inordinate attachment to the material world. So, this is a problem for the soul, but Krishna gives good news in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, you have to give these up. Vitaraga bhayakro. Vita means given. You have to give these up in order to make advancement. Vitaraga bhayakro. Manmaya mamupashrita. Bahavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavamagita. He says, don't worry, because many people have overcome these three. And therefore they have attained the supreme perfection. He says, so many people have done this, and you can do it too. All you have to do is get purified. Now here's where today's verse is key. This is interesting. It's actually what we're looking for. We want the variety, and we want the smile. As the Sri Upanishad points out, the Upanishads are the preliminary awakening of self-realization in the soul and the material world. He's just coming out of this slumber. And he says, Mukam. What's that verse? 11th, 14? Sri Upanishad. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukam tattvam bhushana pavrenu satyadharamaya drishtaye. Oh my Lord, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so I can see your face. He wants to see the mukha. Now this is where the soul can become free from all of these anomalies in one fell swoop, one medicine. And it's becoming interested, not just interested, but enamored of the features of Krishna, and recognizing who Krishna is and what his features are. Then yene ravindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayastabhara vashuddha buddhaya. Krishna says this anomaly of forgetting Krishna and trying to do every workaround you possibly can, it won't work. But if you become absorbed in the personal features of the Lord and understand that he's the Supreme Personality, then all problems solved. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, he says, one little thing. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Just think of me, worship me, bow down to me. And when you bow down to something or someone, then you start thinking about it too, right? Because why am I bowing down here? And then that's the solution. So it's one thing. And that's what Krishna consciousness is. And when we take it out into public, like Ratha Yatra, it's a shock to people, but they get purified. When they see Jagannath on the Ratha Yatra cart, they get imperceptibly liberated. When they hear the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Yadabaso Pyudyan, just the indirect exposure to the holy name, means like radiation. Yadabaso Pyudyan Kavalita Bhava Dvanta Vibhavo. If they're in complete darkness and they're absorbed in the variety of the material world and there's next thing, when they hear that, it starts to awaken within their hearts a sense for something higher. That's how powerful the sound vibration is. So we have an interesting project. We have the descriptions of the personality of Godhead, the personality of God. Nobody has that. Go to any museum in Toronto. I mean, don't really, but if you went to every museum in Toronto and looked around, you're not going to find, here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, origin of everything, here's his features, here's what his lotus feet look like. But we have it. You look at we've got everything, it's a museum. And they don't have the sound vibration. The vibration's wrong. The soundtrack is off. It's sirens, and then the cacophony, when we were at that last venue down by the city hall, that was awful, I gotta say. That band, they were screaming about something. But I could tell from the mood of it that it was affected. You know, they weren't that good. I'm sorry, but they weren't. And the way they were singing and the way they were expressing their mood, it sounded as if they were imitating somebody else. And what's more, it was incoherent and not very pleasing. It was abrasive. So it's contaminated by the modes of material nature. So we have a solution to all this. Sattvam rajas tamayiti prakritir gunastar yukta para purusha eka ihasidate stityade hari varinchi hareti samja shreyamsi tatra kalu sattva tanor nrinam suhu. The Bhagavat says, Sutta Goswami says, here's your problem. You're looking at the wrong people. Don't worry about Brahma. Don't worry about Shiva. Yes, they're exalted personalities. But what you want is the person who's beyond the modes of material nature. You don't want anything to do with the modes of material nature, little jiva. It's not for you. What you want is the transcendent person beyond it, who's the source of everything, even the modes of material nature. And if you've put your focus there, then you get the ultimate benefit of life. That's Krishna consciousness, panacea. So this verse is iconic because here it is, Krishna himself taking birth in a little village, and then he has his name-giving ceremony. You get this great sage who knows what he's talking about. And he's saying, you know, yeah, he's like this. He's got these colors and everything. And he's holding back. He's not, but the rest of Bhagavatam doesn't hold back. It gives everything, all the details. And that's something one can dive into. And if you get your mind into that, at first it's abhorrent. People can't understand the Bhagavatam. When I first came to the Krishna conscious movement, I moved in the temple, I shaved my head, and I looked at the Bhagavatam and said, what are these stories and these people and pictures? I was used to Bhagavad Gita, and I think, Bhagavad Gita, that's cool. Sri Upanishad, I had that too. But the Bhagavatam, it took me a few months sitting in the class till I go, whoa, this is something, because of that Vita Ragabhaya. But Krishna says, you can get purified from that. Just hear the Bhagavatam and see the deity. And then the Nam, chant the name. It's like, that's somebody's name. How come you're saying it over and over again? Because that's the main person. He's the source of everything. So this makes sense. And it can be spread. That's the other exciting part about it. And that's what we do here. We specialize in it ourselves. We experience it for ourselves. And then we go out and show people, like, here, you want to see God? And Prabhupada said, anybody can do it. I maybe mentioned this the other day, but as an experiment, as I like to experiment, we took out 5-year-olds on book distribution. This may be around 2009. And some parents loaned me their kids for a few hours. I took 5 of them out. I had chaperones too. But there's one lady, we went to her house and she was standing on the porch. She saw me in a dhoti and all the kids running around, a few of the parents there. She could tell something was up. And she said from her porch, she said, oh no. And the kids had no idea what that meant, so they flung open the gate, ran to her, and they surrounded her. And they were showing her pictures. They were flipping through the books. So I could hear one of them say, see, this is a cow. And this is Krishna. And the lady looked at me and she goes, all right, how much is it? But what struck me was they could point to God. They could say, here's Krishna, here's a cow. And most books don't have that. They have misconceptions or no conceptions. And that doesn't sit well with the soul. You need the variety and you need the specificity. We want specificity. So this is it. This Bhagavad, it has all of that, and this is where the Paramahamsas live. They just dive into this, and they stay absorbed, and they swim here, and that's where they live eternally. They're in this realm by sound in the Bhagavatam, and then their relationship with Krishna awakens automatically by hearing about the other relationships, and it becomes their reality, and it is reality. So this is a very important, iconic verse, and it's so sweet because it's in a cowshed. Anyway, there's more to say, but let's see if we have a few minutes for reflections or questions, or yes? I get a free bottle of water every time I give class. I keep these.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
No, I'm good. I don't need a cup.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for this nice class.
He said, thanks for the nice class.
You were mentioning in a class previously that Lord Krishna incarnates.
Lord Krishna incarnates.
Just for giving us something interesting to talk about.
Just for giving us something interesting to talk about.
So.
Yashutva paro bhavet.
Yashutva taro bhavet. I was wondering what's your opinions on, now we live in a culture of overstimulation, like we have reels, we have loud music, we have things that we're already accustomed to that is very overstimulating. And so for somebody to dive into the Bhagavatam and be stimulated by that, you kind of have to be on like a pretty high level of Krishna consciousness. So I was wondering how to, someone who's a reforming, like overstimulated person, how do you kind of make that switch?
Prasadam is one thing. It's really important for people to get prasadam. It has a systemic effect on our consciousness. Prasadi sarva dukhanam hanirasupajayate prasana chetaso yashu buddhi paryapatishate. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, when you get prasad, prasadi sarva dukhanam hanir means that your misery starts to abate. Prasadi sarva dukhanam hanir asyo pajayate prasana. The mind becomes peaceful. Prasana chetaso, prasana cheta. Prasana chetaso yashu buddhi paryavatishate. Then the buddhi, the intelligence becomes refined. You get vivek. So you have to take prasadam. So it's a really good idea for people who are overstimulated in the material world to get nice prasadam. If you have a little tamarind rice with peanuts offered to the Lord, that could do it. Or a little kitri with some mango pickle and a little lime, that could do it too. It could knock you off that overstimulated state. You know, little kitri. You know, who would imagine if you just have a little kitri? You know, you just feel, I'm okay now. You know, I don't need anything else. I just want kitri. And so people, they're getting all kinds of stuff, and it just agitates them more. So they need something simple, like transcendental food. So that's a good idea. Give them prasadam. And take little something. Little. Anything else? Yes.
Well, I have a question also and a couple of reflections. What you said about the little children pointing to Krishna and the cows.
Yeah.
I was at the book table here yesterday, and there were two little girls, sisters, and the older sister opened up the Krishna book, and she was pointing to her little sister. This is Krishna, and this is his cow. So that was just natural. But I also have a question, which is that Srila Prabhupada, I noticed, also has purports inside his translations. And in this particular one, I wondered why, when there is no mention of the green color of the parrot, or the parrot itself, or Lord Ramachandra, or the fact that it was in another Dwapar Yuga specifically, Srila Prabhupada puts that in the brackets in the translation and not in the purport.
That would be a good thing to ask to Pradyumna or Jayadvaita Swami, because they were there for these things, and you can trace back the history to many of the things that happened. I've heard it from both of them, not about this, but other things that go, oh yeah, Prabhupada said this about that, and he added it. So it's a good research project. You should maybe write to Paul Sherbeau and find out if he knows something about that, because he likely worked on the translation.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's have a couple more. You have to ask questions, otherwise I'll go away unsatisfied.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for the nice class. Maharaj, my question is, you said that we cannot experience things in this world. So, for example, when we have something to eat like a pizza, we are enjoying. So, is that not experience?
It's a kind of a fabrication. The senses are covered. Prabhupada gave an example. He said we have original senses, but they're covered over by matter now. And so we're getting a sense of stimulation, but it's not the real satisfaction of the senses. The real satisfaction of the senses is described in many places, but one notable place is when Narada Muni has his revelation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, Krishna reveals himself to Narada when he's a child. He's a child, he gets association with sadhus for 2 seasons. They stayed extra time because they noticed he was precocious. And then his mother died, single parent home, and he left at 5 years old, approximately. He went out in the world using what he learned from the sadhus. He went to many places, but he sat down one day in a forest and was feeling focused and purified in the mode of goodness. And Krishna then revealed himself to Narada. And there's a description there of how each one of his original senses was enlivened by connection to the personality of Godhead. And the way it's described by contrast is when he came back from that experience, Krishna retracted it. He just gave him a little taste of what real sense enjoyment is. And that is the senses in relationship with Krishna. It's so compelling that when he came back into the material body, then he felt as if he was, had crashed out of that experience. This is even apparent in a very mundane level when people have out-of-body experiences. Oftentimes in operating rooms or in accidents, the soul, the body's not completely finished. It's still inhabitable, but the soul rises above the body and observes it. It rises in the astral body. You know about this, right? It's not foreign to you.
I think out-of-body experiences are described in coming back.
Okay. There's lots of research nowadays. And so there are descriptions many people have when they're released from the gross material body and they're observing it. Some people think, ooh, yuck, I don't want to go back in that thing again. Because the body's very gross. I was trying to dance this morning, I was looking at my fingers, I think, that's all you can do? It's not beautiful at all. I mean, some dancers, I saw the dances the other night, and they actually have some finesse, but It's hard for me to imitate. And I was just thinking how gross and chunky the whole body is. And that's for the soul, it's very gross and chunky. And the kind of experience we get of the sense objects of the material world, Prabhupada said in a lecture, he said, rasgulla is very nice, right? I mean, it's subtle, because if rasgulla is good, it's squeaky. That's a real rasgulla. You eat it and it's got, you squeak, 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 and like, yeah, they know how to make a rasgulla. And at the same time, it's subtle. It's not overwhelming, but that's sublime. And so he said, now you wrap your tongue with gauze. You know what gauze is? It's what they use to wrap like a wound or something. He said, you wrap your tongue with gauze and now eat the rasgulla. And then he said, that's what the enjoyment of the senses are here in the material world. And it is a stimulation of the mind. The senses are externalized, they're covered. And we think we're enjoying, but it's an idea, and it's filtered through the three modes of material nature. Everyone has an idea of what their sense enjoyment here is in the material world according to how they're affected by the modes of nature. And it's very much like watching a movie. Whereas Kapila Dev says, he says the soul is watching, he said, like a man having a dream. And then he's seeing his head cut off in the dream, and he's horrified. But how can you observe your own head being cut off, because it's, not going to work. And so he said the whole experience of the material world's like that. It's illusory. So real sense enjoyment comes when our senses, Hrishikena Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Rachate, when they're reunited in service, beyond the three illusory states where we have Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, we come into this pure service mood. And then we experience real happiness. There's unlimited taste, and it's ever increasing. It doesn't have a beginning and an end. So that's real happiness. And now we have to stop because I'm starving. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Panchatattva, Shri Gornitai, Shri Radha Kirchor, Gopinath, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhaja. If you so desire, please engage us in your service of helping all the people of the GTA come in contact with the beauty of Krishna, the knowledge of Krishna, the aesthetics of the Krishna consciousness movement, and the sound vibration from the spiritual world, so that they can become happy and dance through the streets of Toronto every day, not just on Rath Yatra. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please say Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpadruscha kripa sindhabevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnaviniki jai Gaur Premanande Haribo. You have a question?
Yeah, just a very small. So this white color, which incarnation, white and red? And red.
Red Varaha?
Vara is red, white is Kapil, and green Ramchandra.
Ramchandra.
Yellow
You know
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right?
That's right.
And